Valentine's Day, football fans. We made it through the final week without any Concacaf Champions League. Love is in the air, but what's even more in the air is CCCL fever. We are just around the corner from our first match down February 18th. Tyler Terrence along with Devin Kerr. So glad that you can join us here on the SCCL show. Of course, you can catch all the games on the Fox Sports family of networks. You can listen to us on podcast, Spotify, and Anchor, soon to be on iTunes. You can watch in the United States on Spanish and Univision. Speaking of Univision, we're going to have Chris Whittingham, Univision commentator, coming on to help us break down Tigres and Club America later. I'm not a huge fan of Valentine's Day, to be completely honest. I know you're not celebrating tonight.
No, not at all. And, for me, it's a Hallmark holiday. I respect people that do, but I still want to be very clear here. What is this world about? It's about relationships. And there was a question as to whether or not this was a good idea for people to do on the day of, but I'm just going to go ahead and do it. Tyler, we're breaking up. I'm done. Can't do this anymore.
You're breaking up with me on Valentine's Day?
I'm out, dude.
See, now it's funny.
We're still hanging out later, though.
We're still
okay,
hanging out.
Yeah.
It's not, okay, I would say that breaking up with somebody on Valentine's Day is bad. It's just another day. It's just another day.
It's Friday.
It's Friday.
We're having dinner.
Sure. What are we having for dinner?
And
Seafood?
You're telling me I have to wear red.
Well, you're not wearing that Mr. Rogers cardigan out tonight, I'll tell you that much. And with that, we'll segue into our first matchup. We're going to feature two fixtures today because, of course, on Tuesday, we're going to start to really highlight the games that are coming up. Club America and Comunicaciones, of course, hailing from Liga MX and Guatemala, respectively. Club America, by far the most successful club within this competition, two-time champions in the modern format of Scotiabank Concacaf Champions League, led by the vivacious and always charismatic Miguel Herrera. Eni Martin is the leading goal scorer with 9 in the Apertura and Clausura combined. Meanwhile, for Comunicaciones, they've been performing well as of late domestically, and that's gotten them some bids into both Scotiabank Concacaf League and Concacaf Champions League. 30-time Liga Nacional champions Agustin Herrera has been bagging goals left and right like they are sweethearts on Valentine's Day. But, Mr. Devin Kerr, I don't necessarily give Comunicaciones that much of a chance because when you look at Club America, you look at their pockets, you look at their talent, you look at how they've been able to perform as of late. It's just not happening.
How could this not be one of the perennial favorites to take this tournament down?
Oh, Joe Corona. Oh,
I can tell you why, though.
Tell me why.
I saw them play in the semifinal of Liga against Morelia, and I was not impressed.
No, barely got by.
But they're not playing them.
No.
They're playing Comunicaciones. No chance whatsoever. You and I have talked about Club America. What will they be in the edition of this year's tournament? And I'm not worried about them in this round. What can they do come their next foe? Will it be Atlanta United? That's a whole nother argument and a couple match days down the road. But first and foremost, this game was over before even it started. So was the second leg. Book them on to the next round.
That was Andres Ibargüen just waltzing his way through the Toronto FC defense, who decided to take a nap on that particular play. But Toronto FC would emerge victorious in the most recent appearance for Club America in the SCCL. And on the other side of the ball, there's Comunicaciones, who is led by manager Willy Oliveira, who, as we mentioned before, they're getting bids into CONCACAF League. They're getting bids into Scotiabank Concacaf Champions League. We talk about growing the game within this region. They're a prime example of if you perform well in your domestic league and continue to play against good competition, and Agustin Herrera, Freddie Thompson, Nico Samayoa, they're doing a good job. There's such a big gap in between where they are qualifying and then being able to compete.
Los Cremas, the Whites. This is one of those teams coming in that, we negotiated, should this be one that gets in because of CONCACAF League or qualifying? Look, 30 national titles. That gives you an idea of what this club is capable of. That confidence sticks around with everybody. We talked about it with Saprissa and some of the other teams that maybe they're not as high on the pecking order as some of the teams coming out of Liga MX. So there will be a belief, but it is going to be a tall ask. And for a team that is leaking goals left and right, you look at their domestic league, yeah, they're playing well, but not really against the greatest competition. This is going to be a much bigger ask.
They actually lost to Olympia in the Scotiabank Concacaf League quarterfinals, but they were able to get a draw as the second highest ranked losing quarterfinalist, if you're still following me there.
Out, yeah.
Tigres and Alianza, this is a fixture that's a bit more intriguing. I mean, you look at Tigres and you think to yourself, well, this is a team that sort of has some demons that they need to exercise when it comes to winning this competition and winning an international competition in general. 3-time runner-up. They fell to their biggest rivals in Monterrey last year. Andre Pierre Gignac, how much involvement is he going to have leading up to the final? Or if they don't get there, how much involvement is he going to have? Pyramid, 7-time Liga MX champions. Meanwhile, on the other side, for Alianza, they've been getting it done domestically. You get rewarded. You get to play in Scotiabank Concacaf League. You get to appear in Champions League. And when they've appeared in Champions League and when they've appeared in Concacaf League, they have done particularly well. Oscar Seren has been the leading goal scorer, 14-time Primera Division champions. They got to the round of 16 last year. They give Monterrey, a bit of a run. I mean, they basically played 176 minutes of near perfect football from a defensive standpoint. We'll have more on them later in the show. But this Tigres roster, I mean, it's loaded with European, South American talent. They're led by a great manager in Tuca Ferretti, but getting over that finish line in the CONCACAF Champions League final just continues to plague them.
3 out of 4 years, and it's almost like, are they too long in the tooth? People have asked that question. For me, it comes down to one thing and one thing only. Is Gignac going to play? And especially because you and I were talking off air, the way that the fixture's set up with their domestic games, paired with the CONCACAF Champions League, this could be a little bit interesting, maybe even dicey at best. But again, when they're knocking it with the best of them, like they are right now in their domestic league, they look really nice. Stout defensively as well. This might be, by the way, the most amazing defensive team in the entire league. CONCACAF Champions League, domestic league, you name it. This team could be the best on the field. And oh, by the way, Gignac put balls in the back of the net.
Andre-Pierre Gignac basically has the ultimate green light when it comes to this group, and if he's not going to play during Champions League and then only play in the final, it makes it a little bit more difficult. Alianza, meanwhile, on the other side, this is a group that can give you a tough time. They score a decent amount of goals domestically like Comunicaciones, but when they get to the international level, they hit a bit of a stall. But it's an experienced group. They took Monterrey, the eventual finalists last year, down to the very last couple of minutes and a controversial call. Maybe they could have gotten the penalties and knocked off the eventual champs.
If you go back and watch both of those, not an overwhelming win by any way whatsoever for Monterrey. I mean, that could have easily gone the other direction. Was it a penalty? Was it not? We're going to break it down in a little bit. But at the end of the day, again, it just goes back to kind of what you saw at Comunicaciones. It's a belief. They've got an opportunity, right? They've got a shot to go further. My question going with them is, if they make some noise here on the right side of the bracket, they are going to mess everything up over there, because this is Tigres' side of a bracket. They should be moving on. That Tigres should be going to the final on the east side. Obviously, on the left side, we've got a little bit more work to do, but could be a little bit fun. But there's going to be, we have a visitor coming right around the corner, don't we?
We do, yes. She's shiny, she's tall, and everybody's after her. It is the Scotiabank Concacaf Champions League trophy, by far the best-looking guest, host, analyst, whatever you want to call it, to grace the CONCACAF studios. And that includes Chris Whittingham, who's coming on the show later today. That includes you, Devin. It includes myself. We're not going to be allowed to touch it. We'll be able to look at it from a short distance. White gloves, the whole thing. I can't wait. She's going to be joining us Tuesday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time.
Good news, bad news. What do you want first?
Give me the bad news.
The bad news is we still can't touch it. The good news is it's starting to follow us. It's getting closer. When I was down in Mexico City for the draw, there was a circumference that I had to keep on the outside, VIP glove service, and I didn't get one of those gloves. Now we're allowed to get the gloves. We're getting closer. Eventually, we're going to get to hoist it.
You think so?
No,
absolutely
we're not.
Between his knees and my knees and the fact that, no, it's not happening. We'd be sent off before we even got a chance to do it. But with all that said, we're going to take a deeper look at the two underdogs in these fixtures, in Comunicaciones and Alianza. One of them has a shot, one of them not so much. Chris Whittingham's joining the show later on. Stick with us, folks.
I went from maybe I can to I know I will. From isn't she cute to fight. Coaches who seem stuck on we can now say we did. From women's football to every 90 minutes, I'm reminded we belong. I went from maybe I can to I know I will. From isn't she cute to fight. Coaches who seem stuck on we can now say we did. From women's football to Every 90 minutes, I'm reminded we belong.
Welcome back into the Concacaf studios. Tyler Terrence along with Devin Kerr. A little friendly reminder that next week the shows are going to be on Tuesday and Friday. Our first match day is going to be on February 18th. Of course, the lovely lady is going to be right here in the studios joining us. What are you looking forward to the most? Like, give me the. I mean, I know a couple.
Leon LAFC.
Settle down.
You asked me.
It's just Valentine's Day. It's just me.
You asked me.
Okay.
No, it's Friday.
It's Friday. It's
Friday.
more so than anything else. It's just another day. It's just February 14th.
I like what Chris Whittingham said to us.
Yeah.
About Leon LAFC. That should be a final.
It should be a final.
That should be a final.
But it's a round of 16. But can you imagine if we were to do what you said and open up the draw completely, then you could have all of the great fixtures in the round of 16.
To be fair, you aren't saying that I'm right.
I'm not saying you're wrong.
Good.
Somewhere in the middle.
I see what you did there.
You go.
I see what
All
you
right.
did there.
Let's take a look at Alianza because this is a group that last year was able to take Monterrey basically 176 minutes down into the wire, a controversial penalty away. But defensively, they're very, very sharp. They have a lot of dog in them. When you look at them, there's a lot of intangibles that come to mind. Fight, heart, belief. But going up against a side like Tigres and all of the offensive firepower that they have, and I say that a little bit loosely because Gignac has 15 goals in the Apertura and Clausura combined. Everybody else basically has 3, 4, 2, 1. But for Alianza, if you can somehow contain Gignac, he might not even be playing in the round of 16. I take a gander that Tuca Ferretti is going to rest him. You might be able to make a little bit of noise in the first leg and potentially have one of the bigger upsets in the round of 16.
Quinones on the outside needs to be a little bit more productive.
Valencia.
Ito in the middle. I mean, he can still ball it out, and he's the engine room. Again, Chris Whittingham's going to join us, and we're going to have a lot of fun with him. I just don't understand, like, is this for Tigres, is this an issue where when they're challenging Alianza, is there a belief that starts to creep into your mind where 3 out of 4, if you lose the first leg, oh no, are the inner demons coming back? Like, that's why I think this matchup is so integral to the right side of the bracket because I still think Tigres is a massive favorite. Let's get that out of the way. And they should move on, much like Club America should move on. But there's much less distance between these two teams compared to what's going on in the left in the Club America matchup. Distance like that where you and I both agree, as a former defenders, we don't want it to be a foul. It's from behind. He touches the ball. But at the end of the day, you still have to call a penalty. That's the second one, by the way. It should not take you till the 86th minute to put a team like that away. You talked about it. Fireworks. Why are you celebrating?
After a round of 16 against an El Salvador
2-3-0. That should be a 2-3-0 game. Move on. Get your business done. So there is a squad there that can do it. You talked about how domestically they've had some good results. They've beaten some good teams. I have a concern on the defensive side of the ball. They've only kept 1 clean sheet.
They gave up 4 goals to Motagua in the semifinals.
That's
of
not a
Concacaf
good look.
League.
Motagua, a team, by the way, that can't score at all.
No.
A good defensive unit, but they can't score whatsoever. So the question is now when you go up against a team that is Gignac playing up top, is Quinones starting to have a good go? When they start to push more balls forward into the final third, what are you going to do? I don't care if Gignac's there or not. That's a difficult ask of them, and you'd like to think they have an opportunity. Everybody thinks that they should if you're on that team. But if you're sitting here and you read a book and you've seen games, you should know that this is not going to happen.
You reading books now?
I'd like to think I do.
Don't hurt yourself.
Casey reads to me at night, so I consider myself reading in between the lines.
Casey is his wife who is not taking out for Valentine's Day tonight, just so if you guys needed to understand who exactly Casey was, instead he's spending time with me. Meanwhile, Comunicaciones and Club America, the 2 underdogs who is more of an underdog, maybe an underpup. I guess we can maybe call them that because when you look at Club America and all of their talent and the fact that they have been able to get over the finish line, they're not like Tigres where they have to exercise demons when it comes to the final. They've won this competition 7 times, twice in the modern format of Scotiabank Concacaf Champions League. But Comunicaciones, they're coming into an interesting situation because Club America and Miguel Herrera, historically and specifically 2018, don't necessarily respect opponents outside of Mexico in this competition. So the question becomes, has Miguel Herrera learned his lesson in Comunicaciones? If he hasn't, be able to take advantage of it.
The answer is A, no, he hasn't learned his lesson, but B, he's not going to get bitten by that bug in this round against this team. Oliveira's squad has a lot going on, and look, they're the 6th overall team coming out of Concacaf League. They're there for a reason.
Not a good look.
It's one of those teams, with all due respect, they deserve to be here this year, but if I had my way, I'm restructuring the draw. A team like this does not get in. They should get beat up and worked around this entire pitch. They've got multiple goal scorers. That's great. 7, 8, 9 guys putting in double-digit goals, and that's awesome when you're playing at home within your own country. When you step outside and it becomes an international challenge, this is a whole nother beast of a burden that they're going to have to fight an uphill battle on. And that is why we say check mark, see you later. Club America on to the next round. Probably against Atlanta.
I mean, Freddie Thompson, Augustine Herrera, Nico Samayoa, these are good names for domestic purposes within Guatemala. And then
Vladimir Diaz as well.
Yeah,
put a couple in there.
when you step into though this gauntlet that is Scotiabank Concacaf Champions League, and listen, Tigres and Club America are the two by far most resourceful teams within Concacaf Champions League.
When you watch Comunicaciones play, it's funny because it's very traditional in terms of style. The 4-4-2, free-flowing at times. It kind of reminds me of kids that are honest in 16, 17, 18-year-old range where guys that, and I'm relating to kids in the United States where you still have that athletic ability where you can exploit certain areas.
Yeah.
So you'll see 3, 4, 5 guys running forward, but it's not a cohesive unit by any means. So when they start to turn the ball over, people are chasing themselves. At times it's like bumblebees following a ball around. That's stuff that goes on when you're children. And they get away with that at home. But again, it's the step to the next level. It's the step against a much better opponent, which Club America is, which is why, again, I say Miguel Herrera is going to have a little bit of fun. Again, another team that has to balance fixtures as well. You and I were talking about that, where you still have a lot of work to do here, and maybe they're going to be passive-aggressive, a bit negligent in their thought process about, okay, let's take advantage of this. No, not whatsoever. They're probably not putting that much effort into it because it's going to be pushed onto the rug. But they don't care if they skate by. They're going to get by, and that's all that matters.
They're going to get by, but like you said, they have games against Monterrey and Necaxa on either side of the first and second leg. So these are massive games within Liga MX domestic play that they're going to have to account for. I can guarantee you that their starting 11 from the weekend compared to the midweek is going to look very, very different.
Also, a situation where you've seen games like this in editions past where even if Comunicaciones can pick one off and win 1-0, they'll get smacked 6-7 up in the next game.
Yeah.
You know how it goes.
Because it's not happening. It's not happening at home at the Azteca for Club America. It's just not. But when we come back from the break, we are going to have a very special guest who has an extremely interesting and educated look at both Liga MX and MLS teams. He's going to help us break down Liga MX, specifically Tigres and Club America. His name is Chris Whittingham, and he's joining us in just a few moments. Don't move a muscle.
I went from maybe I can to I know I will. From isn't she cute to fight. Coaches who seem stuck on we can now say we did. From women's football to every 90 minutes, I'm reminded we belong. I went from maybe I can to I know I will. From isn't she cute to fight. Coaches who seem stuck on we can now say we did. From women's football to every 90 minutes, I'm reminded we belong.
Welcome back in, folks. We have a guest who is joining us live here in the studios. He is a commentator for Univision for both Major League Soccer and Liga MX. Mr. Chris Whittingham, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you guys for having me. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. Well, you made a couple of cracks about both of our outfits before we came online.
I didn't realize it was Easter.
It's Valentine's Day.
It's
pink.
okay, man. I mean, I feel like I'm in the Ivy League, and we all know that never happened.
You know what? I genuinely like the sweater. You, meanwhile, you look like Mayor Pete with the rolled up sleeves and the tie.
You hear that?
You're like giving a campaign speech.
You hear this?
Excuse me, waiter.
Yes.
Right. Well, the burgundy gives off the service industry. But.
Ron Burgundy. Exactly. All right. So we have a couple of big fixtures coming up.
Yeah.
And these Mexican teams are obviously the favorite to win everything. And you have a very interesting perspective, commentator for Univision. You get to see Major League Soccer. You get to see Liga MX, and we'll get into sort of the back and forth and the banter with that. But let's start with Club America. What's impressed with them so far the most this season?
Well, for me, the thing with America, I should say,
yes.
Is just their feeling of inevitability as a club. The thing that's most impressive, because I did their final, and it was actually really shocking to watch them at the Azteca in the final of Apertura lose to Monterrey on penalties. But you just have this feeling that they were 2-0 down after their first leg of the semifinal against Monarcas Morelia. And the second leg of the Azteca just felt like, they'll get the 2 goals, they'll win on the seed tiebreaker, and that'll be that. And I just think that's the most impressive thing about America is just when they're in big tournament settings, they always feel like they have just this sense of just superiority over whoever they're playing. Because they're the biggest club in Mexico, they've won the most titles, you just have that feeling like they're going to win these matches, almost no matter who they're playing.
So let me ask you this question. You say this inevitability in that they're almost always going to win, but they have one of the topmost amount of draws within the Apertura and Clausura, respectively. And this Miguel Herrera team is a little bit different than the one we saw in 2018 in Scotiabank Concacaf Champions League. Do these copious amount of draws concern you at all?
Well, I think it speaks to how America try and play, which is they're not necessarily the most attacking team. They are a team that relies on individual quality to create 25-yard wonder strikes, right? They have Andres Ibargüen, they have Renato Ibarra, they have Gio Dos Santos. You can rattle off all the names. Henry Martin, Federico Viñas leading the line. They have individual quality. They generally don't push fullbacks on. Their central midfielders hold tight. Richard Sanchez is great from a free kick. And so they have all these different ways of scoring goals that don't necessarily require them to be aggressive. And so I think that's what you see very often in league play is they're not going for it and sometimes get caught, and that's where the draws come from.
Fair enough. Devin?
Chris, I want to ask a question. You talked about all those pieces going forward. Having the opportunity to see it firsthand, I alluded to it earlier, second leg of the Liga against Morelia, saw that a lot. It was that push forward, holding that high line, and that individual brilliance. Roger Martinez is a guy who has been very vocal in the news that I'm not really getting enough playing time. Miguel Herrera and I, we have a great relationship, but I'm not getting enough reps. Said that he did not deny a transfer, but there's a lot of rumors about maybe going to MLS, maybe jumping across the pond. What's his current status right now?
Yeah, so the technical setup at America don't want him playing anymore. And they've decided he is not available for selection. And I think it's a big miss because it's a squad that's short for depth. They don't have a ton of players filling out their squad right now. You look at recent matches where players have been away in South America for Olympic qualifiers, they don't have a ton, and so Martinez could be a huge boost. Now, he wanted to move to Europe. He wanted to go to Genoa in Italy because that's a club that he was linked with. Now, with Inter Miami potentially going for him as well, there have been reports that his agent wanted too much money, that he wanted too much money, and so we'll see if ultimately that move comes to pass. But I don't think Martinez has much of a status with America right now. He might be a player that's sitting on the bench up until we get to either a point where America get desperate and he has to play, or until the summer when he can secure a move to Europe or elsewhere.
Isn't it amazing that a team like Club America can have a talent like Martinez and just, no, you're going to sit on the bench. We don't really want to play you right now. We have enough
You're
guys.
You're a different toy. We'll get to you
We
eventually.
have enough toys that can handle this right now in Champions League. MLS teams would kill for that.
We'll get that. We'll get to that in a second. Yeah, a little foreshadowing there. How about on the other side, in between the pipes, Ochoa?
Yeah.
Ochoa, a guy who they brought in and spent a lot of time overseas. Performances nicely were a bit up and down last year. We saw a blunder this weekend against Querétaro. Does Oscar Martinez get the opportunity? Herrera's already said in the news, no, Ochoa's my number one.
Yeah.
But there seems to be a different story within fans, maybe pushing that envelope a little bit.
I think when he joined in Apertura, it took him a second because he's been in Europe for a long time.
Yep.
And the style of play, playing for a club like Standard Liège versus playing in Mexico, is very different. It's a lot more aggressive, there's a lot more contact, and the referees give a lot more. In Mexico than they do in Europe, and so I think Ochoa struggled with that for a while.
Should have gone to Mexico.
Still be playing.
But his save percentage towards the beginning of his time in Apertura for America, his save percentage was really low. But actually, they've been keeping clean sheets for the most part in Clausura. So I think he's settled in. He'll probably be the number one if he doesn't play in Champions League, because what you guys have alluded to so far in the broadcast, which is they don't necessarily take the competition seriously. So I think Ochoa is definitely their number one, both from a status standpoint and probably from a performance standpoint.
What's interesting on that also is that Martinez is right there, but their third is like 17 years old. He's some young kid that they're just trying to bring up. So gives you an idea of how that feels.
Well, Chris, you segued beautiful into my next question, because Miguel Herrera in 2018, for those of you who don't know, when taking on Toronto FC in the quarterfinal, basically before the first leg, dismissed them completely, saying we don't concern ourselves with Major League Soccer teams. We want to concern ourselves with teams in Europe, which is basically saying we've already won this competition. We're going to the FIFA Club World Cup. They got bit in the butt a little bit for that, and you could see in the way that Club America played that they didn't expect Josie Altidore, Michael Bradley, and Sebastian Javinko and Osorio to be running circles around them. Has Miguel Herrera learned his lesson?
I think he might have, because I think the fact that they don't have to play Copa MX is a big deal. Their midweeks have not been occupied. They've been able to get weeks worth of rest with their current situation in terms of fixtures. So I think he will give his full squad more of an opportunity. I think the other major reason why is because there isn't a lot of squad depth there. You look at recent matches and their benches are filled with what I call three-digit players, because in Mexico, the young players, the under-20s, get three-digit players. So you see like 204 getting subbed in. Those are the youth players. And some of those players have filled out the squads at America because of injuries. It's just a thin squad. So I actually don't think they have much of an, unless they decide to play kids, which is a pretty dangerous, away from home against anyone in CONCACAF. I think that you'll see pretty strong squads from Miguel Herrera in this tournament.
Again, they have Monterrey and Necaxa on either side of the first and second leg. Let's shift our focus to Tigres, unless you have one more question.
No, go ahead. You're doing just fine. Happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. I appreciate it. Go back to Yale. Okay, so Tigres.
Yeah.
Welcome to the SEC.
You just threw me right in the middle of the banter.
Well, you're quarantined off right now with CCL fever. I mean, you're getting it from all. So we should have brought in masks for this show. So Tigres, Andre Pierre Gignac. I mean, he's the huge name. He's beloved within the club, within the community, and he's just taken it by storm. And he's performed so well. But he seems to be the only guy who scores at a regular clip. And if anybody who watches Tigres play, he has the ultimate green light. I mean, this guy's allowed to shoot from inside, a step inside of midfield, and his teammates are sort of like, it's Andre. He can do whatever he wants.
You do you.
You do you. We'll sit over here, and if it goes in, it goes in. If not, great. Is it a little bit concerning that basically 2nd through 10th goal scorers have 4, 3, 2, 1, and that he's the only guy that puts the ball in the back of the net?
Well, it's not just the fact that he's the only individual. It's that as a team, they generally don't score as many goals as they should, especially when you consider full international strikers that he pairs with, whether it's Eduardo Vargas, who's a full international for Chile and a great player for Chile, but for Tigres, can hit the broadside of a barn. And then you have Enner Valencia, another player who at full international level for Ecuador is a sensational player at international level. But
and he carried them last year while Gignac wasn't playing.
Right,
most of the
and
goals.
whether it's with West Ham or Everton, his league form has not been great for a long time. So for me, there is a real concern with the fact that it's not only the strikers, but it's wing play as well. When you look at Luis Quiñones not delivering enough, they actually went to a younger player in their most recent league match, Roberto Fulgencio, who was just trying to change anything. I think Tuca Ferretti is generally a manager who is unwilling to change, but he actually has said in the press recently, I might have to, because of the desire to get this turned around and just get this looking different from an attacking point of view. Because last tournament in Apertura, they were sensational from a defensive point of view. They had 1 or 2 breakout matches scoring, but for the most part, it was pretty drab in terms of attacking.
And David, I don't know if you noticed this in last year's final, and I'm just going to basically pose this to both of you. I mean, it looked just beyond out of sorts from Vargas, Gignac, and Valencia in the attacking third. I mean, Monterrey did a terrific job, and that's why they were champions, but Tigres looked like they wouldn't be able to score a goal against the U12 side.
At the end of the day, no matter what you're doing throughout a tournament and how good you are as a player, when you bring someone on who hasn't been there, as good as Gignac is, it messes with the chemistry. And we saw that, right? I mean, you kind of sat back and just like you just said, out of sorts is the best way to see it. You sit there and you go, that run's not being made. That's a bad ball. He didn't peel the right
The
direction.
guys running into each other. It was a mess.
terrible.
Yeah.
But that's what happens. It's no different than in the States when you see an all-star game. And there's all these guys with a lot of talent, but they're not really putting together a finished product. That's what you saw in the final because they got there not playing in a different manner, but playing with different players, especially up top. When you have one point man who is so influential like Gignac, and he's not there, you find a way to adapt. You find a way to score goals in other areas. You exploit different spots against your opponent. Once he comes in, you said it, gets a green light, does whatever he wants. Those runs are stopped being made. Or the runs that are being made are different than what were made in previous matches.
Agreed. And I think the way that Tuca Ferretti likes to set up its team, it's keep the ball first because that's almost their method of defense. But it's not necessarily possession in an attacking way that you would normally see in other countries. It's a very conservative form of possession, mostly between midfielders and then into attacking areas. It's very often Gignac, work your magic. And I think, like you said, when he's not in the side, it just is a bit out of sorts and that attacking just doesn't feel the same. And we'll see if that changes in this Champions League and whether or not they decide to maybe go for it a bit more.
Chris, I want to go to the other side of the ball. You talked defensively, how good this team has been. Edson Alvarez has been gone for a little while now. Massive name that goes to Ajax. In your opinion, what has that evolution been like for those boys on the back line, for the goalkeeper controlling everything?
Yeah.
Tactically, has there been a lot of changes? Where have they maybe been a little bit weaker than when he was there?
Yeah, for me, it's all about the solidity of the team, and I think that's probably what Ferretti has most prioritized in the aftermath of his departure. But you look at that back line; it is filled entirely with full Mexico internationals who have won at least 20 caps in their career. So they aren't hurting for talented defenders. It just does take on a different shape. And the midfielders, when you look at Carioca and Pizarro, take on a bit more of that defensive responsibility, and they stay back more in a way that maybe when you had Edson Alvarez, you had the ability to kind of send them further forward. But the side does not hurt for talent. I mean, the Tigres team from 1 to 15 has extraordinary quality.
Do you buy the argument coming out of some of the press that maybe this team is too old?
I don't. No. I mean, I can see it when they lost to America in the most recently played Apertura. There were times where, I mean, that second leg at the Universitario, they were played off the park. And that probably should have sent off alarm bells. But no, I don't think it's a side that's too old. I just think it's a team that's a bit short of attacking ideas and is playing too many 1-0s and 1-1s and needs to figure out from within the tactical setup and from within these very immensely talented players how to create more scoring chances and create more goals.
It is amazing how many veterans they have on this team. I mean, you think of Dueñas, you think of all these guys who can play multiple different positions.
And they've been there for a long time in that system.
Yeah. But I think that the Gignac factor, I think that's what we have to call it at this point. It's very real. We love our predictions in the sports world and on these types of shows. Is Tigres a team that you can see actually gets over the hump this year?
Of course. I mean, they're one of the 4 Mexican sides in the competition, and they're always
Those
the
are the only 4
favorites.
teams that can
win.
No,
I don't. I don't agree with that because I don't. LAFC
Shots fired.
LAFC is getting out of the round of 16. Breaking news.
They can. Why not? I mean, I think
you were the one telling me the other day while we were out having drinks that was water, of course.
Double waters.
Double waters. You said that you love Club Leon.
Oh, I love
Leon. Goals at
Listen. There is no when I get my my assignments the week before, I have a full weekend of Liga MX fixtures. There is no team I prefer to play. I prefer to come when I see Leon. I get so excited just because of the way that they play, but it's very attacking. When Fernando Navarro comes inside as like one of these Pep Guardiola right backs that become center midfielders, it is a very attacking shape. And one of the things that I think LAFC are underrated for because they are such a good possession playing through teams way of breaking teams down, their counterattack is fantastic. And Leon are absolutely vulnerable to a team that can hit them on the counter. Their defenders are inexperienced and new, and I think that LAFC absolutely have a chance to go and beat Leon.
Okay.
Just because we're there, I want to ask another follow-up there because we talked about the counterattack and how good they were playing out of their own half, moving out of the corners and just going with pace. And it's not 2-3 guys. They're moving 4, 5, 6 pieces to even when they turn it over, their line comes so high, and now you got to play against them. Is this a situation for LAFC where, against Leon, they have to expend too much energy to get to the next round that maybe it's just too much?
It's possible. I mean, we've seen that certainly with the CONCACAF Champions League runs previously of Toronto FC getting to the final, and I just think they about ran out of gas. And their league season after that was totally derailed. Sporting Kansas City in the Monterrey semifinal, and then afterwards in their run in the league as well, it totally knackered them. But I think when you look at the way that LAFC are built. They have been building for having squad depth. They're making signings where in 12 months from now, this player is going to feature for us, and maybe that becomes sooner. We'll see how seriously they take the league, but I'm such a believer in LAFC and what they can do. Now, generally not a side that plays very well in knockout-style competitions, but I think they absolutely have a shot to go deep into this tournament, as difficult as it will be.
I had the opportunity to pick Bob Bradley's brain because I'm going to be on the first leg of LAFC, Leon, and he already talking about the youth, the academy products, bringing kids up. They have 03s, 04s, and 05s in preseason training with them. Now, some of that is because of the injuries that they're dealing with, but that gives you an idea of how far down the line they're looking and the brain trust that they have there. If they now have the luxury a couple years down the line to dip into that pool, watch out.
I want to ask you one more question on Tigres, and then we'll start to broaden the scope a little bit. They have I believe it's about the second fewest amount of goals combined in the Apertura and Clausura. You talked about all these names and how league form it might not necessarily translate. Is there a name in particular that jumps off the page and he says, you need more out of him? For me, I think of Jurgen Damm. You think of all the physical talent that he possesses. Speed,
yeah,
but his delivery is woeful at times. I mean, they brought him in the final after he was coming back from injury, and I get it, but is there anybody for you that needs to step up from an offensive standpoint?
Presuming Gignac plays, whoever partners with him.
Yeah.
Because Enner Valencia has at times been a player who, I mean, obviously at full international level, at knockout tournaments has played really well, but I think Enner Valencia is a player that absolutely needs to step up because he's been relied upon so far in this Clausura as that second striker, and he's getting chances. I mean, he skied one miles over the bar before eventually getting one in their most recent league match where they hammered Chivas. But I think that Enner Valencia is absolutely that player where he's got to be putting away goals. He's got to be putting away the chances because Tigres do create them for him. He just hasn't been a clinical finisher.
Some of the finances recently have been released for all the clubs across the world, and there have been some pretty shocking figures and teams that are towards the top of that list from Major League Soccer, and then, of course, there are teams from Liga MX that are top of the list that we expect that to be there. You get to see both of these teams on a pretty regular, or both of these leagues, I should say, on a pretty regular basis, and there were actually some comments that came out from Chicharito about how MLS is catching up to Liga MX, and of course, you could say like he needs to say that he's going to play at LA Galaxy, and then Diego Reyes comes out and says, no, I don't think so. How can we say that if Mexican teams are on a 14-year winning streak in CONCACAF Champions League? You've seen it now for a little while on both sides of the ball. What do you think?
I think that Liga MX just has the median spend in a squad that's just totally different. And you look here at the numbers in total spend. But if that's just on transfer fees, then that's not necessarily indicative. And I think the ways in which MLS is catching up to Liga MX is in the top-end spend, right? Where they're picking off Alan Pulido is joint top scorer for Chivas in the tournament, get him off to Sporting Kansas City. Lucas Cavallini plays really well for Puebla, get him off to Vancouver. Rodolfo Pizarro to Miami, and on and on and on. All these players that MLS has picked off from Liga MX, and I think they finally realized, well, if we're going to compete with Liga MX, you might as well start taking some of their players. But it's only the top-end players, and ultimately is the difference between, like you said, Dueñas, and Ayala, Nahuel Guzman, the full breadth of the Tigres squad. Does MLS have it within them to compete on the full level, top to bottom, when Latif Blessing, Mark-Anthony Kaye, Jordan Harvey, those kinds of players who have played really well in MLS, how do they stack up in a continental tournament against Liga MX oppositions that have top-level players at every position? And that is where in order for MLS to truly supersede Liga MX, they have to have talent all across the squad. But you can also understand Chicharito's argument when the big-name Mexican players are coming to MLS, and that is a big deal, if only for the moment for headlines, if not necessarily for the sporting element of it.
To give you an idea, Chris talked about the numbers there in transfer fees, and though it's not indicative, it does give you a little peek behind the curtain. And when you look down at the roster, Tigres, 19 players, transfer fees, over $1.5 million or more. You look at the teams from MLS, Atlanta United 7, Seattle 5, NYCFC 7. Actually, the only team in this tournament is LAFC. They have an 11. And that's where he's talking about where they can start to push the envelope a little bit, and even one-offs in games. But when you get into tournaments like this where it's one leg, it's two leg, you start to go deep into the competition. The Torontos of 2018 are few and far between. And that's why when you see the overall record, the 9-9-20, you look at the percentages, it's absolutely horrendous. I mean, 18 out of 38 games, MLS have been able to get points out of. That's not good enough. At the end of the day, it's like 47%. 9 out of 38. That's not good enough. How do you do it? It all goes back to, and you told me this quote when you were talking to Sporting Kansas City last year. What did he say? Open up the checkbook.
Well, I asked
He
him.
said, open up the
here's
checkbook. Let me spend more money. He's like, what am I supposed to do? I don't have enough money.
Well, I asked him a tactical question. I was asking Peter Vermees, the head coach for Sporting Kansas City last year ahead of their tie. It was actually in between legs number 1 and 2 in Monterrey. And I said, tactically, what do you see as the difference between MLS and Liga MX? And he wouldn't give me an answer other than money. And if that's not indicative of what the difference is between these two leagues, I don't know what is.
Which I don't necessarily disagree with. I mean, week in, week out, I watch the tactics of a lot of these Liga MX clubs, and they're pretty old school. They're defensive. They keep fullbacks back. There's a lot of aggression. There's a lot of kicking and tackling and all that.
If they're shoving the fullback forward, it's one.
Right, exactly. They're holding you back from taking free kicks. It's a lot of old school tactics.
Yeah.
And I do actually think that MLS at times have managers that are doing more things creatively than Liga MX do, but they do have the full breadth of squad to pull it off. And I just, when you look at that Sporting Kansas City Monterrey example, is when you start to get the real questions about, wait, when Sporting Kansas City lost 10-2 on an aggregate tie to Monterrey, how can you even make the argument? How can you even make the argument that this is close? But I think it's more about, first off, we need to see the teams that enter Concacaf Champions League take the competition seriously and be the genuinely best teams. That's an Open Cup entrant. It's not necessarily the best that MLS had to offer for that tournament, even though they got the farthest. But I just, and the other obvious concern is that it's preseason for the MLS clubs, and LAFC just traded away Walker Zimmerman, who was an important player for them. You've seen other squads in the tournament, so
Atlanta, ton of movement.
Right, exactly. NYCFC hiring managers late.
Yeah.
Like, they don't necessarily put their best foot forward from the beginning of the tournament.
And that's why Toronto was so successful in 2018, because it was basically the same exact team. Same exact team. Well, quickly, we do have our Valentine's Day segment, and we have some of the hearts here in a little bowl. And
You're not heartless.
I'm not heartless. No. So there you go. They got little messages on them. They're not the originals that you're used to seeing. Yeah, there you go. Wow, look at you.
And
You're like the football version of Vanna White. Go ahead and let Devin take one.
It says miss you. All right, here we
let
go.
Devin take one. I'll take one as well, and we'll try to match them up with something within Champions League. You might not be able to do it. There's a message on either side.
Yeah.
All right,
so you go first.
I'll go first.
Yeah.
All right, so I have Be Mine.
Okay.
I'm not giving it to you. And I have Forever.
Oh, okay. Oh, there's two. I didn't
There's two sided. There's two sided.
I didn't know this was two sided.
Got it.
Yeah, it's like heads and yeah. So
all right.
So Be Mine. Like, it's got to be MLS teams.
You're feeling it. Huh?
They have to be my SCCL champion this year, please. Just be mine. And then the other one, Forever. I don't really know if I can link that up with somebody. Maybe
Forever, they're not going to win. It's not happening. Not this year.
Memo Ochoa, Forever the GOAT in between the sticks.
Oh, there you go.
Don't send him away just because he had a blunder against Querétaro. He is your guy in between the sticks. They were going to build a statue for him after that World Cup. No, it's not. Chris, what do we got?
All right, so mine has Miss You, and I'm going to go for Montreal Impact as this team because I miss Toronto FC. Montreal Impact, Montreal Impact are probably not going to do well in this tournament. I mean, they don't appear to be putting their best foot forward. Ignacio Piatti has just left to Argentina. And Thierry Henry is new to this. I mean, his first game in management, it's a very interesting proposition. Yeah. And I miss Toronto FC. I think
I thought you were going to say you miss Ignacio Piatti. I thought that's what you were going to say.
No, but I more miss Toronto FC because of their pedigree in this tournament.
Okay.
I think they would have been a better entrant than Montreal Impact.
Probably, but the Canadian Championship, I mean, there's no rules there. There's no rules.
Hometown favorite. Yeah. We're in the Impact Blue, too, as well.
Right, exactly.
Easy, Gail. What do you got?
Don't worry. My Ivy League reading. Okay, we have BFF.
Ooh.
Excited about that one. BFF, I'm gonna actually steal something that you talked about in terms of what's going on for Tigres up top and whoever's paired with Gignac. He needs a best friend up there to create a bit more goal-scoring prowess and not just their first-round matchup, but push them past Alianza, make a run at this thing, and finally become the bride instead of the bridesmaid. And let's get this out of the way. Let's get it done. The other side.
Let's walk Tigres down the aisle.
Still the one. Still the one. The best man sitting right next to him. Still the one. I'll tell you what, still the one. I'm going to go with Garth Lagerwey. Garth Lagerwey and Seattle Sounders. I think he's still the one that has the best opportunity from MLS in terms of where teams were seated, who their draw was against, the best opportunity to progress forward. I also think they may have the best opportunity to be upset on that side as well.
Really?
I think they could sleep a little bit.
You were talking about this last show. I don't buy into this.
You don't have to buy into it, and that's fine. They are my favorite, but they could be knocked out early as well.
Deal breaker here? What do we got? Seattle Olympia?
I think it's Seattle.
I still think it's
Yeah,
Seattle, and I still think they have the best bet.
No, but-
if you told me at the end, if they got picked off early, if they went down to Olympia and lost, and couldn't fight back at home, I wouldn't be shocked. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. Fair
To
enough.
me, it's more. I mean,
And Saprissa goes through. We
You
got
talk
that.
about putting you talk about putting your best foot forward. Rui Diaz, Lodeiro,
Yeah.
Jordan Morris. They've signed DP in midfield.
We don't mind that Roman Torres is gone. He was
Right,
getting
yeah.
older anyway.
I mean, you look at his games played, even in his entire Seattle career, he's never played more than like 15 games in the season.
and
so.
a lot of the opponents were strategically placed in front of him. He wasn't necessarily against top tier guys.
Right. So I think Seattle are putting their best foot forward. I think better than they have in their entire time in Champions League.
I want one from each. Let's do the team. Forget the matchups for a second. I know you have to breathe into it, but let's do Liga MX, MLS, and one of the guys coming to Concacaf League. Do you have a personal favorite? Any one of those? One from each.
It's funny. I like Leon and LAFC, and they happen
There
to
it
play
is.
each other.
That's fair, though.
I listen.
Shows like LAFC is going to win
hedge
it.
your
Now,
bets.
now by the
Hedge
end,
your
it's
bets.
like they're not getting out of the round of 16.
Okay, but it's entirely possible
It is.
that either.
Well, if you go on and win it, if you
Right.
go and win that one, what's stopping you from
Right,
winning the whole thing?
exactly. So for me, Seattle, because you mentioned the bracket that they're in, I think Seattle probably has the best chance of the MLS teams. And then from Liga MX, I think on current form, you'd probably say Leon just because they're playing that well in Clausura. But for me, America is the team that has the best chance, just because their tournament experience, the top line players, they're getting Viñas back, they're getting Benedetti back. They have enough in attacking areas to really get the job done. And so I think America probably have the best shot from Liga MX.
And you don't even want to touch CONCACAF League? Nobody's got a shot?
That honestly, I leave that expertise to you guys.
Really?
You guys are.
I just knock him out. Let's
Yeah,
move on.
just knock everybody
knock him out of there. Let's go to the next round.
All right. Well, this is Chris Whittingham. We thank you so much, buddy, for coming on
no
and
problem. Can I eat
being
this, by
able.
the way?
No, you cannot eat that.
No?
No, Devin
Okay.
touched it. You get the CCL fever.
I got mine.
It's bad. Yeah.
I got mine.
He's gonna pop it in there.
There
There
it
you
is,
go.
BFFs.
Remember, you can watch all these games starting February 18th on the Fox Sports family of networks. You can watch in Spanish in the United States on Univision.
Do
This
that,
is
check it out.
available. Sure. Why not? This is available on podcast, on Spotify and Anchor. Soon to be coming on iTunes. Am I forgetting anything else? Happy Valentine's Day.
Trophy on Tuesday.
Happy Flag Day. Trophies coming in on
Flag
Tuesday.
Day.
Flag Day. I don't know.
President's Day.
I like Flag Day more than I
President's
like
Day.
Valentine's Day.
But it's President's Day.
Sure. It might, well, Mayor Pete. There you go. And remember, Tuesday show, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. The trophy's going to be in here. It's going to be sitting right here where Chris is sitting, and it's going to be much
Can I
better
come in
looking than
and
what
check
you
it
see
out?
right. You can come in, you just can't
Okay.
touch it. Can't
Okay.
touch it.
All right.
Have an awesome weekend. Enjoy Valentine's Day, whatever that means. 90 and 60 coming up. We'll see you later.
Football. We could say that for us,
Por uns.
Para nosotros,
on this side of the world, football is our life, the game of our lives. Football always comes first. We all come from different cultures, but football unites us.
Sin pillar su saben.
nos une.
One region, one voice.
Una voz. One voice.
Une voix.
If we listen closely, we are born ready to shout. And from there, we start to play with intensity until the last minute. Faced with obstacles, we work through them. We will improve day by day, always forward, making football better everywhere, every match. Our passion is so strong that it breaks down borders, even those that are hard to knock down, for all of us to reach our dreams. We are the region where the game comes first, bringing the game closer to our fans, and decisions are always made for the good of the sport. We raise our level every day, making football better everywhere, every match. We will put all our teams in position to win. In our region,
Nuestra región.
Notre région.
Nuestra región.
everyone gets to play, connected and respected. region.
Una región.
Una región.
Una región.
Together, we are the collective best of our individual cultures. We are millions of souls. We are together for the love of our game. United for football. 41 countries for one love. Concacaf. Love for our game.
Just about 10 miles across the Hudson River from New York City lies Red Bull Arena in Harrison, New Jersey, as Chris Armas' side take a 2-0 lead from the Dominican Republic and Atletico Pantoja back here to Harrison in the Garden State, as New York Red Bulls will be looking to move on to the quarterfinals. Club Atletico Pantoja, debutants in this competition and still looking to become the first ever Dominican Republic team to score in a CONCACAF Champions League. Leg number 2, around a 16 play. Tyler Terrence on hand. Thank you so much for joining us. A brisk night here in New Jersey, but that has not stopped the Red Bull faithful from coming out. 28 degrees, slight chance of rain. Nothing like we saw in the Houston Dynamo affair against Guastatoya that was pushed back about 2.5 hours, as we'll take a look at the road to the trophy for just a brief moment. Tigres and Houston Dynamo will square off in the quarterfinals after Tigres thrashed the Prisa of the Costa Rican outfit 5-1 in the second leg. Houston Dynamo just barely escaped Guastatoya from Guatemala. And a number of other teams that are looking to go ahead and become one of the final 8 teams in the 2019 edition of the Scotiabank Concacaf Champions League. Red Bulls not unfamiliar with this tournament whatsoever. We're just about a few centimeters in a couple of different instances in the 2018 edition of this tournament from moving on to the final and having it be an all-MLS final between themselves and Toronto FC, but they were stymied by Chivas. A terrific defensive performance from Matias Almeida's side as they were able to get a clean sheet right here in Red Bull Arena, and they were able to come away with a 1-0 win back in Mexico in the first leg. And Red Bulls know all too well that they cannot take any team for granted. Toronto FC certainly are a warning shot when it comes to that, and when they saw that result, it was sort of a wake-up call. But even besides that result, Chris Armas' side has come into camp extremely fit, and when you come in fit and flying, it just makes the process that much easier. You're able to focus on defensive tactics, you're able to focus on set pieces, defending and attacking them. And really, Chris Armas' side come into camp and come into this tournament feeling very good about where they are, despite the fact they've only been together for about a month or so. Atletico Pantoja, funny enough, are actually in the same boat as Red Bulls, as they too are in the middle of preseason. They have a new coach similar to New York. However, Chris Armas did take over in the middle of the season after Jesse Marsch and Tyler Adams departed for Red Bull Leipzig. The former obviously departing after the season had concluded, and since Tyler Adams has arrived at Red Bull Leipzig, Jesse Marsch's side has done extremely well, put up a number of goals, only have conceded 1 or 2, as it looks like the teams are just about ready to go. The supporters are all bundled up, but I'm sure have a beverage or 2 in hand, and will keep warm throughout the course of these 90 minutes as they are looking to march on to the final 8. They were able to take down Club Tijuana in the quarterfinals a year ago, as the crowd slowly but surely starting to file in here on a cold Wednesday evening in Harrison, New Jersey. And we'll step aside for just a moment as the teams make their way out onto the field. It's New York Red Bulls of Major League Soccer in the United States against Club Atletico Pantoja of the Dominican Republic. Moments away from kickoff in the second leg, around a 16 Scotiabank Concacaf Champions League play. New York Rebels and Atletico Pantoja for a spot in the quarterfinals as Chris Armas' side have a 2-0 lead. No changes from the first leg in the Dominican a week ago. Luis Robles, the Iron Man in between the sticks. Connor Lade is going to fill in an outside back as Kamar Lawrence still getting back to mat fitness. However, he is not available in the 18 tonight. Kaku, the Argentinian maestro in the middle for New York, really makes them go. He had the assist on the Royer goal, and Waldez Innocent is getting the start for Atletico Pantoja. We'll get to their starters in just a moment. He was responsible for the opening goal, which was an own goal. John Pitti, the Panamanian referee, and his all-Panamanian crew, with the exception of one assistant referee, Christian Ramirez from Honduras, as Nico Rebollo, who had a really lavish first leg, did an excellent job defensively. He was all over New York Rebels, really as best he could. I mean, obviously New York dominated from a possession and shot standpoint, but they were able to keep the damage to a minimum, and only coming away with a 2-0 loss is probably more or less a moral victory for Mariano Tejada's side, who was just assigned a few weeks ago, and a number of changes, 3 to be exact, including the keeper, Pascual Ramirez, who's going to get the start. We mentioned Nicolas Rebollo and this 5-back Atletico Pantoja defensive unit that is going to try to keep a clean sheet, obviously, and get their away goals as we take a look at the reserves available for both New York and Pantoja. As you can see for Rebels, no Kamar Lawrence, Amir Fernandez, who got his senior debut in the first leg, available off the bench, as well as Andreas Ivan, and a couple of other very good options for Chris Armas, who's in his first full season for Red Bulls, as Luis Robles, the captain, and really a long time coming for this man, is a terrific leader and really has been what it's all about in Major League Soccer. Very rarely will he miss a game, and actually broke a record of more than 150 games, well over 150 consecutive played, due to an injury that he picked up. But enjoying his time, and obviously had that legendary performance against Club Tijuana in last year's quarterfinals, coming up with 13 saves against the Mexican side. However, his efforts, as well as the entire New York teams, were not enough in the semifinals, as they lost on aggregate 1-0 against Chivas. And looking to change all that, and actually Matias Almeida, who's the coach of Chivas and the Scotiabank Concacaf Champions League champions of 2018, now with the San Jose Earthquakes in Major League Soccer, as New York Rebels in their red, Pantoja in their white and blues. We're off and running from Harrison, New Jersey. Again, I'm Tyler Terrence. Thank you so much for joining us wherever you may be tuning in on the globe, as we should have a fabulous 90 minutes ahead of us, and we will have another quarterfinalist at the end of tonight's match. Here's Kaku. Open rhythm to this one early on. Royer. Sean Davis, Homedale, New Jersey native, finding Kaku, sliding it through onside, trying to peel it back for Wright Phillips, but broken up. Kaku on the first time, and that would have been something special inside of the first 3 minutes. Pascual Ramirez can take a deep sigh of relief, as it certainly had him interested until it crossed over the end line. And we'll get another look as Kaku was trying to keep it down, and the technique was actually spot on, but he's ended up slicing it in the end, able to get his body over it. Sporting number 26 for Red Bulls tonight. Royer keeps it low. It'll fall for Wright Phillips, knocked across. And Muil was not expecting it. The flag ended up staying down after the deflection off of Pantoja. That's why Wright Phillips was kept on. And more of the same in the second leg from what we saw in the first, which is missed opportunities. Obviously only about 12 and a half minutes in, but still trying to find that finishing touch in the attacking third, New York. Only scenario where we could have penalties, and remember, no extra time in Champions League now, would be a 2-0 result in favor of Pantoja. Any other variation, and it's a clear-cut win for either side. Parker fans on the initial clearance, but a fortuitous bounce allows him to be able to scoot it up for Murillo. Slip on the side of Pantoja. Aaron Long comes away with it. A couple of short, quick passes, releasing the counterattack the other way. Royer finding Kaku, the Argentinian. Look at Murillo, knocked in! And did Ramirez get a touch to it? The answer is no. Goal kick for Pantoja. Wheel and the entire Red Bulls faithful are claiming that Ramirez got a touch to it. Well, he's certainly not going to say anything, and he'll happily take the goal kick. And Murillo knows that that probably should have been kept on the ground and knocked across the face of the goal mouth, but just escaping from him in the last moment. Saw Royer, Muil, Wright Phillips all arriving with perfectly timed runs. Kaku, again denied. Takes it on the first time again, and Ferreras able to come away with it. Royer. Red Bulls really starting to put the clamps down now. Muil. Overlapping run from Connor Lade opens some space up. Tchaikovsky. Back for Lade. Morristown, New Jersey native. Muil didn't get nearly enough on it and just toe poked away. And look how many red jerseys are in Pantoja territory. Even up 2-0 in the second leg. Trying to play their brand of football at home as the South Ward and company are bouncing behind Luis Robles. Tchaikovsky. Lade got a slight touch to it. Tchaikovsky putting on the moves. Perfectly weighted ball. Muil for Royer. And Ramirez able to scoop it up after initially parrying it to himself. But more good play from Red Bulls in the attacking third, just lacking that final piece, which goes without saying, probably the most important. You can see he was trying to nestle it in that right post and go for the curler, but closed his hips off just a little bit too much at the last second. Long and extremely well there. Tchaikovsky told to turn. Just look at all the green that's in front of him. Threading the needle for Kaku. Royer looking for Wright Phillips. Wow, how did that not go in? Looked like he was surprised that it got through. He's pointing to the playing surface. Ball from Royer's choice. Able to bend it in behind the back line, and Wright Phillips hits off his knee. Same goes for Tigres in the second leg last night against Saprises. They came in trailing 1-0 to Estadio Universitario in Monterrey, Mexico, and ended up putting 5 past Aaron Cruz, who had a magnificent showing in the first leg. Connor Lade able to get away, can't stay on his feet. Referee says play on. 4-on-3 if they hurry. Kaku trying to find Wright Phillips. It was the right idea. Boy, does he have eyes in the back of his head or what? Knew exactly where his big number 99 was. And a yellow card issued to Ernesto Trinidad after the play for his tackle on Connor Lade, which hindered his ability to join in on the counter. Now 20 minutes gone here at Red Bull Arena, still 0-0, 2-0 on aggregate to New York. Sean Davis. Oh, look at that. Wright Phillips cushioning it back for Lade. Makes one defender miss.
Keeps it low again. Shouts for a handball. Giampitti not interested. Again, New York a firm grip on possession, but lacking that finishing touch that we continue to talk about. Albeit only about 112 minutes or so into their competitive 2019 campaign as Connor Lade has some room to operate here. Back for Royer. Wright Phillips. Oh, wow. If he was able to bring that down and hit it. Ran out of room in the end as Ramirez needed to play sweeper keeper. Thought for a second he might hit it on the first time, but couldn't quite torque his body in the appropriate manner. These are simply things you can't teach, is that sort of instinct in the penalty area when so many other players will snatch and let nerves get the best of them. Bradley Wright Phillips seemed to have a cool head. Kaku. Thought about it. Little hip swivel to open up some space. Picking out Davis. Back for Murillo. Lofting it in. Ramirez off of his line and able to collect. And Santos have scored another. Makes it now 8-2 on aggregate in favor of the Liga MX side. And I think it's safe to say that it'll be Santos and either Red Bulls or Pantoja in the quarterfinal. Kaku. A little bit of air underneath it. Muil thought about the first time hit. Now tried to peel it back, and Roboyo thwarts the effort from New York again. Back for Tchaikovsky. Whipped in by Davis. And Royer couldn't quite bring it down after the miss from Ferreras. Giampitti says Bradley Wright Phillips got the ball. We'll play on. Kaku. A decent ball in. Roboyo back out to Wright Phillips. It's off the bar. Almost shattered the crossbar. Kaku back in. Ferreras wins it. And Pantoja can take a deep breath. What an effort from Bradley Wright Phillips. I don't think you can catch the crossbar any more square than he just did. Espinal. Pantoja. Have something cooking on the other end now. St. Ville. Knocked into space for Carlos Rosell. And the attack comes to nothing as Murillo cuts it out. Roboyo stepping forward. Giving New York a little bit of the taste of their own medicine as they're coming with the press now. Lofted in the air, Robles off of his line, and easy work for the veteran keeper out of Arizona in his 8th season with New York. Another look at that outstanding effort from Wright Phillips. Just sat up for it perfectly. Kaku again, looking for Wright Phillips one more time. Excellent defending from Pantoja. Royer was waiting to tee it up. Davis stepping through with the header. It's Sean Davis. An unlikely scorer from an unlikely position, but Sean Davis will take it. Scored in the round of 16 last year right here at Red Bull Arena against Olympia. And the first goal of the 2019 season in Harrison comes by way of the New Jersey native. Stepping through with a thumping header. And it was a header from about 13 or 14 yards out. Sean Davis with some neck muscles to be reckoned with. Look at the way he attacks the ball. And it's perfect placement as Ramirez was caught on his line, to be fair, but Sean Davis with an emphatic header. And New York take a 1-0 lead here in the second leg, 3-0 on aggregate. Davis stepping through again. Royer for Lade, taken down, penalty. Connor Lade again making things happen and putting an enormous amount of pressure on this Pantoja back line. And now Red Bulls will have a chance from the penalty spot to go up 4-0 on aggregate. And the foul and yellow card issued to Anderley Peñaranda. Check that, it's on Darley Batista. Look at this ball from Royer and Connor Lade. Tough to tell whether or not he actually got touched, but if he didn't, might be putting in a bid for an Oscar nominee next year. And stepping up to the spot is Daniel Royer, Austrian native who already has a goal to his name in this tournament. Looking to make it 2 for him and 2 for Red Bulls on the night. Daniel Royer roofs it. 4-0 to Red Bulls on aggregate, 2-0 in the second leg. And New York more than comfortable now. Looks like they'll be taking on Santos in the next round of the Scotiabank Concacaf Champions League. Really an unstoppable penalty. Ramirez goes the right way, but didn't expect the lift from Royer. And if his confidence can continue to grow into the later stages of this tournament, it's only going to serve Red Bulls well. Kaku, excellent from Wheel. Now it's with Murillo. Tchaikovsky. Ferreira's had some work to do. Tchaikovsky trying to pick out Murillo. Knocked back in. Ferreira's got to it. Rebels were looking for another pen. Not going to get it this time from John Pitti. It's Wheel who's down for the home side. Certainly doesn't feel good in these temperatures. Hovering around the mid to high 20s. Will get some medical attention. 23-year-old from New York City. 30 appearances for Chris Armas and Jesse Marsh in the 2018 campaign. 3 goals, 5 assists. And there's a look at the Sean Davis opening goal, and then Daniel Royer, emphatic from the penalty spot. far one of the more fit players in Major League Soccer. Chris Armas calls a philosophy player, just buys in, and Wheel on his play said, I make dangerous runs because I'm so fit. The game against Atlanta United last year, covered 500 meters at top speed, 200 more than the next player at their top speed. Kaku clips it in for Connor Lade. Maybe one or two more attacks left for Chris Armas' side. Kaku. Back for Tchaikovsky, the leader of the engine room for New York. Davis looking for Wright Phillips, trying to bring it down, but he's offside. One more game to feature at 10 o'clock tonight as Monterrey will host Alianza in the second leg of that round of 16 matchup. 0-0 was the score in the first leg. 2-0 to score of the second leg here in Harrison, New Jersey. Took a while for Red Bulls to really get going and to put one in the back of the net, but Sean Davis, like he did in the second leg of the round of 16 a year ago, able to find the space in behind Pascual Ramirez with a thumping header from about 14 yards out, and then from 12 yards away from the penalty spot, Danny Royer converts in the 32nd minute. Not much work for Luis Robles or the back line for New York, as they have a stranglehold on this second leg and this round of 16 tie. They are well on their way to the quarterfinals. Atletico Pantoja on the other side, still looking for the first ever goal from a Dominican side in this competition. We'll step aside, but when we come back, first half recap, highlights, stats, and of course the conclusion of this round of 16 of the 2019 Scotiabank Concacaf Champions League. We'll see you in a few moments. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Red Bull Arena here in Harrison, New Jersey. Tyler Terran's on hand. Thank you for joining us and tuning in. And if you're just tuning in, we'll help you a little bit. And we'll give you some first half highlights between New York Red Bulls and Atletico Pantoja of the Dominican Republic here in the second leg of the round of 16, Scotiabank Concacaf Champions League 2019. And New York in their early going, and we're obviously flexing their muscles and putting a lot of pressure on this Pantoja back line. And it culminated with a Sean Davis header. Look at this from about 13 yards out. Jumps off one leg and just powers it home. Bradley Wright Phillips was in the middle of a lot of play for New York in the first half, as he so often is. Daniel Royer, Kaku, Tchaikovsky making things go in the middle of the park, and finally able to get one. And it wasn't the most glamorous goal that anybody on this team has scored, but as you can see from Chris Armas and that big Tiger Woods fist pump, it certainly means a lot to be able to get that first one and avoid any sort of late comeback from Pantoja, as New York came into this with a 2-0 lead on aggregate. That Sean Davis goal made it 3. And then some counter-attacking play from New York would lead to this yellow card for Pantoja, as Connor Lade was taken down and unable to join in on that counter. And then watch this, Daniel Royer, knowing Lade is coming from behind him, and then the foul called on Peñaranda, or excuse me, Darley Batista, and he would end up getting a yellow card. Connor Lade taken down. Penalty would be in order for New York in the 32nd minute, just 5 minutes after the Sean Davis goal. And then up steps the Austrian, who had one in the first leg down to the Dominican, and he would bury it in the top left corner. And New York would take a 2-0 lead in this second leg and a 4-0 lead overall on the aggregate. And Royer with his second goal of the competition. And knows exactly where the supporters lie in Red Bull Arena. A gesture towards them, a gesture towards the quarterfinals, where they'll be taking on Santos, who have a 9-2 lead on aggregate. Up 3-0 in the second leg in Mexico at the moment. And that's going to do it for the highlights from the first half. We'll take a look at the numbers from the first 45 minutes. And as you can see, an overwhelming lion's share of the possession for Chris Armas' side. 10 shots, 3 of them being on goal. No shots whatsoever for Marian Tejada's side, who are still looking for the first ever goal from a Dominican side in this competition. Sabao were unable to get a goal, but they were the first ever Dominican side to participate. As we'll step aside yet again, but when we come back, the conclusion of the second leg and this tie, and we'll have our 2 quarterfinalists in about 45 minutes. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Red Bull Arena in Harrison, New Jersey, as we have a couple of substitutions. As Jean Carlos Lopez is going to come out, and he will be replaced by Ronaldo Vasquez, who actually started in the first leg. And the other substitution, Darley Batista, coming off the number 9 for Pantoja, and coming on should be Pablo Marisi, but we'll double check that in a moment as we are underway in the second half. New York Red Bulls well on their way to yet another Scotiabank Concacaf Champions League quarterfinal. And barring one of the greatest comebacks in football history over a Mexico, it'll be Santos pinned up against the reigning Supporter Shield winners from Major League Soccer. Santos are up 9-2 on aggregate. And the word over a Mexico is that Santos have close to 90% possession in that second leg. Embarking on yet another journey to try to find that elusive MLS Cup. Polarizing effect between Red Bulls and that cup. And despite 3 supporter shields in the last 6 years, simply cannot get over the hump. They'll start their MLS regular season campaign against the Columbus Crew on March 2nd. They'll start to do the balancing act as Michael Murillo issued a yellow card here in the 49th. Claiming he came in with the shoulder, but PT thinking it was a little more cynical than that. And while to some it might seem like he was trying to slow up a counterattack, and you can understand the yellow in that sense, that looked like a pretty clean challenge, or at least just a foul. But Murillo shown a yellow card. Mentioned before that Red Bulls fell to Chivas in the Champions League semifinals a year ago, and how Matias Almeida, who brought Chivas that trophy, now with the San Jose Earthquakes, and when you know it, Red Bulls will take on San Jose on March 16th. Royer ripped down by Esto Trinidad. Holding his back, Red Bulls elect to go quickly. Thing that you want Steelers side, really any game, but especially at this juncture in the season where you're in this wildly competitive tournament, an international cup, one that you felt like you could have won a year ago. And then also the start of the MLS regular season. Injuries are just something that simply cannot afford. Here's Murillo. Kaku. Wide for Connor Lade. He's had a nice night thus far. Muil. There'll be another corner. This time on the Red Bull side of things, as we are, it's going to be a Red Bull substitution. According to Chris Armas, came into camp and picked up the tactics extremely quickly as Royer couldn't quite handle it, fell down. It squirts out to Bradley Wright Phillips. Now it's with Kaku. Royer at the back post and straight into the hands of Ramirez. Another look at that chance as Kaku again just continues to put his teammates in glorious positions to score. Certainly was a difficult finish attempt for Royer, but did his best to at least get it on frame. And boy, oh boy, is he glad to be back out on the pitch with his comrades. Here's Royer. In from Wheel, excellent first touch. Second, a little sloppy. Opens up some room for Ferreras. Now it's Tchaikovsky. Tchaikovsky did well there. Open opportunity, squirts through, and it's right under the foot of Royer. Stays with Red Bulls. Kaku, Royer, great turn, off the post. Wheel again. And Ramirez able to smother it. A tizzy of action in front of the Pantoja goal. And Royer continues to just be baffled by woodwork, by unfortunate bounces. Oh, goodness me. Kaku looking for Wright Phillips. Ferreras again. The cleanest we've seen from Kaku. Vasquez. 3-0 over Mexico. Santos over Marathon, 9-2 on the aggregate. Kyle Duncan can't hang on to it, and finally, Andreas Ivan will be able to come on and replace Bradley Wright Phillips as the Romanian will get his first appearance of the 2019 campaign for Red Bulls. Bradley Wright Phillips, another disappointing night, and while his team is going to come away as victors and move on to the quarterfinals, that's a man who's usually not smiling from ear to ear unless he's finding the back of the net. And that's what makes him one of the very best goal scorers that Major League Soccer has ever seen. Tchaikovsky in a little bit of space, and Pantoja squeeze Red Bulls out of this spot. But Wheel slipping it through for Tim Parker, who's now going to stride forward and create some space of his own. Connor Lade. Andreas Ivan. Thumps it across. Not a bad ball at all, but Royer wasn't expecting it to come across that quickly or in that fashion. back-to-back nights of Champions League football in Monterrey after Tigres came away victorious 5-1 in the second leg and 5-2 on aggregate. And then tomorrow it'll be Atlanta United and Herediano at 8 o'clock, Toluca and Sporting at 10. Atlanta with some work to do and won't be at Mercedes-Benz. It'll be in Kennesaw as Kaku's ball a little bit short of Connor Lade. Andreas Ivan! Terrific finish! Ivan on as a sub and onto the score sheet. It's his first goal as a New York Red Bull. And it further seals the deal for New York. On to the quarterfinals. And now lead 5-0 on aggregate. Well, it's always a relief to get that first goal monkey off of your back. And for Andreas Ivan, it's a great finish, asking a lot out of Ramirez, who actually gets a hand to it. But the pace and placement, too much for Pascual Ramirez to handle. Ivan actually has German nationality despite being born and raised in Pitești, Romania. Spent 6 years in Germany with Stuttgarter, as well as lower level Germany football clubs. Had 9 appearances a year ago. No goals, no assists, 1 start to his name after arriving during the summer. And here's Kyle Duncan on the other end. Gets tangled up, and good play from Nerlens St. Ville. Duncan committing the foul after a little bit of frustration because he felt he might be able to get his first Red Bull goal. Whipped in. Aboyo again. Kowski sticks his head in there. Vasquez comes away with it. Could this be the moment for the Dominican Republic, and specifically for Pantoja? Vasquez. Good movement here, out of the reach of St. Ville. And Kaku. A little bit of magic to get his way out of trouble. Duncan loses it. Switch from Vasquez. Dumped away by Ivan, who is the 3rd goal scorer for Red Bulls tonight. As we're going to have another substitution, this time from Pantoja. Red Bulls have exhausted all 3 of their options. And it's going to be Carlos Rosell coming off. And coming on, Scareth Taveras. Kaku. Substitute Taveras. St. Ville. He's got speed with the ball. There's no doubt about that. Espinal, leading goal scorer in the Caribbean Club Championships. Back in, Espinal. Just out of his reach. Gets within striking distance of the penalty area. Not interested in breaking that clean sheet for Luis Robles. Royer, positive first touch. Taking it back for Ivan. Nealis getting a touch and releasing for Tchaikovsky. position beautifully. Taveras has a handful with Daniel Royer on his heels. Royer comes away victorious in that particular 1v1 battle. Tchaikovsky makes one miss. Yolanda back out onto the field for Atletico Pantoja. Playing down a man any longer. Tchaikovsky gives us a nice up-close visual. It's the two-man wall for Pantoja, 88th minute. To put your money on delivery here from the German. Davis in the mix as well. Tchaikovsky, excellent ball, and Royer missed it again. And all he can do at this point is just smile. It's another terrific opportunity. And how about this ball from Tchaikovsky? It had all the whip, bend, and dip you could possibly want. Puts it right on the Austrian's dome, and he just simply does not have those finishing boots on tonight. It's the same story in the first leg. And here we are, thinking that Daniel Royer should have about 6 or 7 goals between the two legs, but still coming away with 2. So with this already wrapped up, Royer obviously just going to be careful and move on to the quarterfinals as Kyle Duncan got stuck for a moment. And the foul called against Rebels, and this could be the last hope for Pantoja here. They get the first goal in Dominican history in this tournament. And they know the situation. They're going to take their time with this. It would leave a slight sour taste in the mouth of Chris Armas in New York, but academic really in the grand scheme of things. It would mean the world to Atletico Pantoja to find the back of the net and take something positive into their regular season, and perhaps when they come back to this tournament in 2020. Vasquez puts it on frame, and Robles handles it easily, and that's going to do it. New York Red Bulls heading off to the quarterfinals of Scotiabank Concacaf Champions League once again. Final score on the aggregate is 5-0. Goals from Davis, Royer, and the substitute Andreas Ivan. And there you have it. Red Bulls continue to perform extremely well in the opening stages of this tournament. Most seasons, Chris Armas, his first real win when it comes to the overall tie in the Scotiabank Concacaf Champions League as a head coach. And we'll take a look at the road to the championship as Red Bulls and Santos will collide next week and the following week. It'll be in Harrison, New Jersey, right here at Red Bull Arena. On the first week, second week will be at Santos. That's going to do it for our entire crew on site and everybody here at CONCACAF. I'm Tyler Terran saying so long for now. Final score on aggregate, Red Bulls 5, Atletico Pantoja 0.